I was just emotionally destroyed. And they, at that point, decided we've got to move. So Dad was offered another government position. Now remember that 7-year, I'm at the 7-year point. And truly my body was shutting down. We moved to a Native American reservation within our state, which is not a safe place today for this situation. But at this time, either they weren't there. I love all these people. Either they were not there, the transporters, or they understood the 7-year time frame as well. I can't tell you, but they left me alone while I lived there. Now, I was destroying myself other ways, lots of alcohol and things like that, because now my parents are thinking I'm rebellious, but they don't recognize that instead of being rebellious, you're actually in pain. I always try to tell people, don't assume teenagers are automatically rebellious. If there's rebellion, Terry, see what's behind it. See what's behind that, because there's a reason. It may not be what was happening to me, but there's a reason that a child turns that direction. Find it. Find it and don't give up. People may not know this, but I do trainings for just about everything: medical, law enforcement, the psych world, therapists, churches. So I want to assure everybody I'm fine. I've told this story a million times. I don't shed tears. The problem is, Sean, your tears get stolen in certain cases. And I was told never to cry. And if I cried, I was beat. So I learned not to. And now I have a hard time finding tears. I know it'd probably be healthy, but that's one of the areas that hasn't healed yet. However, if I have a cute grandchild doing something, that can tear me up. but I can't seem to cry for myself. So we moved, and I had a 3-year reprieve. There was a lot that happened in there that I put in my book just because it is important to where things ended up, if you want a long story. But for our purposes, it doesn't matter so much.
We love long stories on this channel. We tell the guests never cut a long story short.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
I've watched you quite a few times now with things that don't have to do with this topic, or they do, but they don't relate to me. I had told Sean before we came on that I've really tried to not watch other people's stories. I've had a lot of names said to me. And in fact, I think the one I really watched so far was Marley and or Zara Marley. Yeah. And then a little bit of somebody I don't know. I don't recall. But I will probably now that I'm getting my story out here, not just in the surrounding states of South Dakota, and I have gone to like Michigan and Washington State with my story, but that's about it. A couple of book sales to the UK. That's about it. So I was always told I was eventually going to be international. I have traveled internationally when I was younger, so I look forward to another. Hopefully that will happen again in my life. Get a couple of body things fixed first. Anyway, what's probably more, well, this piece might be important. I got in trouble on the res, and and I love the res. Your body remembers everything. I can go to any reservation anywhere, because I have done this, and sleep for days because nothing happened to me on the res. And so it's my place of solace and peace. take me to a res any day, sit me in the middle of a powwow. I'll probably fall asleep in the powwow. I mean, I was hired for years. I was going to one reservation particularly and working with survivors. And we'd have to give me the first 2 days to sleep. They literally paid me to sleep so I could work because I couldn't stay awake, or I would work at night. It was just awful, but it was very healing. And it was really, yeah, I love The Body Keeps the Score. I read that after I mentioned this to somebody, and they said, you need to read that book. Great book. Great book. I love that you put so many people's comments up it, because I've got like a phone in front of me when we're doing our podcast, and I'm trying to see what others are saying. And this is really handy right here. I don't know. Yeah, the energy is different, for sure. It's a whole different spiritual atmosphere. But I also want to be, really open. I've been a pastor for over 20 years. And so that kind of lets people know where I'm coming from. So I've got all kinds of, I've got a church with a whole lot of survivors in it, because we've made it, and a whole lot of Native American people, we've made it a very safe space for people of any type, but especially people with deep wounds, because I have deep wounds. And I'm open about that. I don't want to hide that. I never want someone to think, oh, you're a pastor, you should be on some kind of weird spiritual platform. No, I'm just one of you. And so, anyway.
So you were saying that you're at the 7-year period.
Yes.
Then,
thank you for taking me back. I'm ADHD. You'll have to do that maybe more than once, actually.
That's okay. That's my job.
Thank you. So I was, my parents sent me to boarding school on the other side of the state when we were on the reservation, because I was getting in so much trouble. And that was a good move too. I learned a lot there as well. It was a safe place. But then my dad decided to leave the government for a year, and we moved to Michigan. Now, I had 3 years of beautiful reprieve, and we moved to Michigan. I'm not expecting anything to go wrong. I had made a certain commitment to God in my life that I thought meant I'd be safe from everything. And I just realized I forgot to turn my above light on. Am I too dark?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
You're fine, yeah.
If it gets dark, time's changing. If it gets dark, let me know. Okay. I totally spaced it. So when we moved to Michigan, we moved to this, and I was 17 now. It was between my junior and senior year. And it was this beautiful, beautiful lake. It wasn't Lake Michigan, but it was a lake off of Lake Michigan. And it was called Wolf Lake. Interesting title of the lake for this situation. And we lived right on the beach. And it was a beautiful sandy beach, and we had our chairs out there, and we couldn't wait for the first day to get in the water. And I don't remember, and my brother remembers this day like it was yesterday, so do I. And it's something I've never forgotten, because I did forget a lot of things. There's a lot of what I call bookends in my life where I've got this and this, but I have no idea what happened in between. It wasn't good when you forget. So we get in the water either the first or second day. I don't know. We don't know anybody. We just met these 2 girls. And so they came in the water with us, and we're swimming, and we start to hear this yelling across the lake from what looked like very wealthy homes. And they were yelling my name, but just my first name. And I'm hearing my name echo across the lake. And I looked at my siblings and I said, that can't be me. Nobody knows us. And we all agreed, nobody knows me. So there has to be another Kelly on the lake. That's what we assumed. When within short order, 2 men came jogging down the beach, stopped right next to us, and said, hello, Kelly. and they kept going. And then I knew. I literally got physically sick, and I went in the house. And then began the worst of the worst time of my life. And it did not end until I escaped. They came to my window that night. My window faced the beach. The screen was open. And these two men told me, we're going to be coming to your window. And when we do, you're coming out the window with us. And if you don't, you know what's going to happen. There was a path behind our home through the woods that went up to a truck stop area. It wasn't like, it was just a place they pulled over. There weren't any buildings or anything. And that is when I first began what I would call outwardly being transported. They would take me up to these truckers. I'm 17 years old and I can't say no. But that isn't all they did. They set up. I had a local boyfriend. I'll never probably know his involvement in this, but they set up a situation where he and I were out on a date. And I didn't realize the setup, by the way, until I was writing my book. I didn't really understand the setup, but it's something I've never forgotten this incident. It wasn't one of my blocked memories. But he and I were lying on the beach of Lake Michigan, but under these trees. It was a special area. Interesting, an area that I've gone back and visited since when I spoke in this community. I actually was called to speak at the very community. There are no coincidences. These people had no idea I had lived there before. I'd never heard of this organization before, and they found me on some no one's ever else called me from some speakers list that I was on. I was actually able to help law enforcement in this case, and I'll make sure I share that, Sean. Make sure I don't space it.
Okay.
So on that beach, we're kind of, laying there making out. And the making out of my day, which was kissing, and he's on top of me on a blanket when we hear motorcycles. And they were loud. And he looked up and he goes, "Oh my gosh." He goes, "Just do not look. Don't look at them. Pretend you're lost in my eyes. I'm going to pretend I'm lost in yours. We've got to pretend they're not here." And he named this motorcycle club. They were a 1%er group out of Detroit. If you're familiar with 1%ers, they wear a patch that says 1% on it. 1%ers are open to doing anything and everything illegal. All of the 1%er groups are involved in transporting of anything. Can be humans, can be, I don't know what you call this, but I'll say medication. Can be, just all of the stuff that's illegal or illicit. And they surrounded us. And that turned into a gang essay from the motorcycle club. And literally did not know this person, but I could not get the face of the lead MC guy because he did not look like the rest of them. I couldn't get anything about him out of my head. And this led to a forced abortion. The boyfriend took me. The boyfriend also took me to that clubhouse of theirs. The community we were in had one of their secondary clubs that they would come and stay for a part of the summer. And so for that entire summer, I was made to do exotic dance and take care of them. It was just all It was just all SA. I mean, what else are you going to call it? So between them and the truckers, I was exhausted, busy, and miserable. I remember being in the water of the lake behind me, and a couple of memories that are very clear is God hates me. And I was so mad at God because I didn't like not believe there was a God. I wasn't really raised to believe in God, but somehow I just did. But I was so angry at what God would allow this. And he must hate me if he is, right? If he really is, if he really exists, he must hate me. And that's where I was at. And I also pounded on the water. I remember this day very well, deciding I hated Barry Manilow because his music was playing. And I realized that I actually hated all the music from that summer. And anything anybody was playing around me, I still can't listen to the music from that summer. So I don't know what happened, to be honest, but my dad didn't like whatever job he was trying to do there. We moved back to South Dakota, this time to the eastern side of the state, the far eastern side, which is very close to Minnesota. I mean, it borders it. And well, I started out of the boarding school, but I was kicked out before Thanksgiving of my senior year. I was kicked out for using unprescribed medications and sharing them. So I got kicked out. You see, by then I am rebellious now. I am angry, but mostly I'm trying to blunt the pain. I don't want to be me. And so I'm kicked out, and the home we moved to turns out to be the hub of the crime ring in the state, the very hub. I'm shortly thereafter kicked out of my parents' home at age 17. Before, again, I think it was right after Christmas, but before the new year. And I was kicked out. Unbeknownst to them, I'd already been checking out homes, places I was going to try to move out. And so it worked out. I had an apartment that I could move into with another gal that was never there, and I was never there, so it worked. Remember that everything with elite is hidden. It cannot be seen. So it wasn't like, oh, let's put a bazillion tattoos on you like they will with someone that's maybe out on the streets or in hotels. That's not how it works, because you can't have marks. You can't have scars, all of these things. Well, except for the scars, they obviously intentionally wanted. The 3 down my back and the 3 on my wrist had a purpose that I still don't fully understand. I think it was a mockery, though. These particular people that were into the gang essay, they were also into some SRA stuff. So I almost think it might have been a mockery of the Trinity. I'm uncertain of that. But they did a lot of bizarre stuff. So I was going to there was something I said, don't let me forget. Well, you know what? If I have to remember, it'll come up, right?
Yes.
It was something about this. So
you were talking about bizarre stuff. Do you mean like rituals and things like that?
Yes. Yeah, I wasn't sure I could say that word. Yeah. They were very much, I mean, so here's how, so I was extremely dissociated, which I'll take you back to age 6, how that worked so well. They taught you, like a light switch, the old fashioned kind that just goes up and down. They taught you how to flip that switch. They literally intentionally showed you how to switch. And when that siren, that's why I was bringing the siren up, would go off at 6, I would, if I was in their schooling, I would immediately get dressed, flip the switch, go home, and tell the mom and dad I'd been playing with Susie all day. There was no way for them to know any different. Well, by now, because of Michigan, I am a really adept at flipping that switch. I had to be. And even once I'm out of my parents' home, because my family lived there for a while yet, they needed a cover story. So do you know I had to work, and this I've learned many have had to do this. I had to work daytime jobs for them that were legit jobs, give my paycheck to them, live in my apartment, which they gave me money to pay for. By the way, they barely gave me food money because they didn't want me eating. I weighed 98 pounds, and that's where they wanted me to stay. And yes, dissociation is the most beautiful gift on the planet. If you couldn't dissociate, you couldn't survive it. I would be in a mental institution. If I had to remember every face ever that I encountered, if I had to remember every incident and dark ritual that I saw, I remember a lot of them, but if I had to remember them all, how would you ever mentally be okay again? So the thing about dissociation is the goal. I work with dissociated people all the time. And my goal for them was the same as what needed to happen for me. You need to be able to stay in that dissociation until you're ready to face things. Once you're ready, then you can begin to integrate those fractured parts. But I'm fully dissociated and living two lives now. In my book, I refer to them as Kelly of the day and Kelly of the night, even though there were many more than two of me, you know. But it explains that life I was living was so split, and it was literally two different lives completely. The jobs that I eventually ended up getting were so above my pay grade, but it's because I was working for the elite, and they had to ensure that they had me in my own office, that I had a traveling job, that I was going to be gone a lot. So there were excuses and reasons for when they took me out of country, or when they took me to huge political events, or, you know, to Hollywood or wherever. I mean, I've